The cold was the first thing Daniel Hayes felt when he woke up. It moved through his body like ice water, and for a long moment he could not remember who he was or where he was. Then the memories came back slowly, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. He was on a spaceship, the Endurance. He had left Earth 300 years ago with 12,000 other people, all of them sleeping in frozen chambers, waiting to reach a new world far away from home. Daniel opened his eyes and saw red lights flashing above him. That was wrong. The lights should have been white and calm. Red meant something bad had happened. He tried to move, but his muscles were weak and stiff from the long sleep. His fingers felt like they belonged to someone else. He pushed against the glass cover of his cryopod, and it slid open with a soft hiss. Warm air rushed in, and he took his first real breath in 3 centuries. The room around him was dark except for the red emergency lights. Daniel pulled himself out of the pod and fell to his knees on the cold metal floor. His legs would not hold him yet. He stayed there for a minute, breathing slowly, letting his body remember how to work. A sound came from nearby. Another pod was opening. Daniel looked up and saw a woman climbing out, her short brown hair wet from the cryo fluid. He recognized her face, Lieutenant Amy Lawson, the ship's communications officer. "What happened?" she asked, her voice rough and dry. "I don't know," Daniel said. "Something woke us up early." 2 more pods opened in the next few minutes. Kevin Porter, the chief engineer, was a big man with thick arms and a calm face. Dr. Lisa Grant was small and quiet, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The 4 of them stood together in the dim light, trying to understand what had gone wrong. Kevin found a computer terminal that still worked. He typed slowly, his fingers still clumsy from sleep, and the screen filled with information that made no sense at first. "We're off course," he said. "Way off course. The ship drifted into some kind of gravity well while we were sleeping. We're nowhere near where we should be." "How far off?" Daniel asked. Kevin was quiet for a moment. "I don't know where we are. The star charts don't match anything in our database." Amy moved to another terminal and started working on the communication systems. She was good at her job, one of the best on Earth before they left. Her fingers moved faster now as the cryo stiffness faded. "There's a lot of radio traffic out there," she said. "Thousands of signals, but none of them are human." Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach that had nothing to do with the cryo sleep. "What do you mean?" "I mean, there are ships out there, lots of them, and they're not speaking any language I recognize." Amy looked at him with worry in her eyes. "Daniel, we're not alone out here." They spent the next hour gathering information. The Endurance was floating in the middle of a massive fleet, thousands of ships of all shapes and sizes moving in the same direction. The aliens had not noticed them yet. The human ship was small and dark, running on emergency power, practically invisible among the giant vessels around them. Lisa ran medical checks on all of them while Kevin tried to repair the damaged systems. Daniel stood at the main viewport and looked out at the alien ships. They were beautiful in a strange way, with curves and angles that human engineers had never imagined. But they were also running from something. Amy finally cracked the alien communications. She played the messages through the ship's speakers, and a computer program translated them into rough English. What they heard made their blood run cold. The aliens were fleeing from a species called the Vethrak. According to the messages, the Vethrak had been conquering the galaxy for thousands of years. They destroyed anyone who resisted. They enslaved anyone who surrendered. There was no negotiation, no mercy, no hope. The Vethrak were coming, and every civilization in their path was running for their lives. "They're heading toward our region of space," Amy said quietly. "If the Vethrak keep going in their current direction, they'll reach Earth in about 50 years. Daniel closed his eyes. They had left Earth to find a new home, to give humanity a second chance among the stars. Now they had discovered that humanity's first chance was about to be destroyed. "We have to warn them," Lisa said. "We have to send a message back to Earth." "It would take decades to reach them," Kevin replied. "And what could they do? These aliens have technology we can't even understand, and they're running. Earth has nothing that could fight the Vethrock." Daniel looked at his small crew. 4 people awake and alone, surrounded by a galaxy of aliens who did not know they existed. Behind them, an enemy was coming that had never been defeated. Ahead of them, there was only fear and chaos. He thought about the 12,000 people still sleeping in the cryopods below. Farmers, teachers, engineers, doctors, children. They had trusted him to lead them to safety. They had put their lives in his hands. "We need to learn more," Daniel said. "We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make any decisions. Wake no one else yet. The 4 of us will figure this out." Kevin nodded slowly. "And if we can't figure it out?" Daniel turned back to the viewport and watched the alien ships flee through the darkness. Somewhere out there, the Vethrak were coming. Somewhere back there, Earth was waiting, unaware of the danger. "Then we find another way," Daniel said. "Humans have been solving impossible problems since we learned to walk upright. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We went from caves to starships in a few thousand years." He looked at his crew with determination in his eyes. "We didn't come all this way to give up now." Amy put her hand on his shoulder. "So what do we do first?" Daniel took a deep breath. "First, we follow this fleet and see where they're going. Then we find out everything we can about the Vethrak. Their strengths, their weaknesses, how they think." He paused. "And then we figure out how to stop them." It sounded impossible. It probably was impossible. But as the Endurance drifted silently among the fleeing aliens, 4 humans began the work that would change the galaxy forever. They did not know it yet, but the universe was about to learn why humanity had survived so long on a small blue planet circling an ordinary star. It was not because they were the strongest or the smartest. It was because they never knew when to quit. The refugee fleet traveled for 3 weeks before reaching its destination. Daniel and his crew spent every hour of that time learning. They listened to alien broadcasts, studied the ships around them, and tried to understand the galaxy they had stumbled into. What they learned was both amazing and terrifying. The galaxy was full of intelligent life. Hundreds of species had built civilizations among the stars, developing technology that made human science look primitive. They had faster-than-light travel, energy shields, weapons that could crack planets in half. They had lived in relative peace for thousands of years, trading and talking and building wonders that humans could barely imagine. Then the Vethrak came. No one knew where they came from or why they were so filled with hate. They appeared at the edge of known space and began conquering everything in their path. At first, the other species tried to fight back. They lost. They tried to negotiate. The Vethrak killed their diplomats. They tried to hide. The Vethrak found them. After 1,000 years of war, the galaxy had given up hope. The Vethrak could not be stopped. The only choice was to run and hope they would not follow. The Endurance followed the fleet to a massive space station called the Conclave. It was bigger than any structure Daniel had ever seen, a city floating in space where millions of aliens lived and worked. This was where the refugees gathered, where the leaders of 100 species met to discuss what to do next. Daniel decided it was time to make contact. "Are you sure about this?" Amy asked as they prepared the shuttle. "We don't know how they'll react to us." "We can't hide forever," Daniel replied, "and we need information that we can't get from radio signals. We need to talk to someone." They landed the shuttle in a public docking bay and stepped out into the station. The effect was immediate. Aliens of every shape and size stopped what they were doing and stared at the 4 humans. Some were tall and thin, with scales that shimmered in the light. Others were short and round, covered in thick fur. Some had too many eyes, others had none at all, and all of them were confused. A group of security officers approached, their weapons drawn. They spoke in a language that Daniel did not understand, but Amy had brought a translation device she had built from spare parts. "They want to know who we are," she said. "They've never seen our species before. We're not in their database." Daniel raised his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. "Tell them we're humans, from a planet called Earth. We got lost on our way to a new colony and ended up here." The officers talked among themselves for a long time. Eventually, they lowered their weapons and led the humans through the station to a large chamber where important-looking aliens sat around a curved table. This was the Conclave Council, the closest thing the refugees had to a government. A tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms spoke first. The translation device turned its words into English. "You are unknown to us. How is this possible? We have mapped every corner of the galaxy." "Our planet is in an unexplored region," Daniel explained. "We've only recently developed space travel. This is our first time meeting other species." The council members looked at each other with expressions that might have been surprise or disbelief. Then they asked many questions about Earth, about humans, about how they had ended up in the middle of a refugee fleet. Daniel answered honestly. He told them about the colony mission, about the cryo sleep, about waking up in a place they did not recognize. He told them that Earth knew nothing about the Vethrak and would be helpless when the enemy arrived. The council listened politely, but Daniel could see that they did not think much of his species. Humans were small and weak compared to most of the aliens in the room. They had no fleet, no weapons, no resources. They were just another group of refugees with nowhere to go. Then everything changed. Alarms began ringing throughout the station. The council members jumped to their feet, fear obvious on their alien faces. A young officer rushed into the room and shouted something that made everyone panic. "A Vethrak scout ship," Amy translated, her face pale. "It just appeared at the edge of the system." Daniel watched as chaos erupted around him. Species that had been enemies for centuries suddenly forgot their differences, united by terror. Some were crying. Others were praying to gods Daniel had never heard of. The mighty civilizations of the galaxy were reduced to frightened children. The Vethrak ship began broadcasting a message. It played on every screen and speaker in the station. The voice was cold and mechanical, promising death to anyone who resisted and slavery to anyone who surrendered. Kevin grabbed Daniel's arm. "I've been studying their transmissions for weeks. Their technology isn't actually that advanced. It's older than what most of these species have." "Then why does everyone lose to them?" Lisa asked. "Because nobody fights back." Kevin pulled out a data pad and showed them his analysis. "Look at these battle records. The Vethrak win because the other side runs away or surrenders. They've forgotten how to fight a real war." Daniel looked around at the panicking aliens. Kevin was right. These species had lived in peace for so long that they had lost the instinct for combat. They had advanced weapons but no idea how to use them properly. They had huge fleets but no strategy beyond running away. Humans were different. Human history was written in blood. They had been fighting wars since before they could write. Every generation had known conflict. Even their sports were based on combat. Daniel straightened his back and walked to the center of the council chamber. He raised his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Stop running," he said. The translation device carried his words to every ear in the room. "Stop being afraid. The Vethrak win because you let them win. You have better technology, more ships, more people. But you've forgotten something important." The room grew quiet. Every alien eye turned to the small human standing among them. "You've forgotten how to fight," Daniel continued. "Lucky for you, my species never learned how to stop." The council leader leaned forward, his forearms folded across his chest. "You think you can teach us to defeat the Vethrak, a species we've never heard of, from a planet we've never seen?" Daniel smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that had finally found its prey. "Give us a chance," he said, "and we'll show you what humans can do." The council gave Daniel 1 month to prove himself. If the humans could not show results by then, they would be treated like any other refugees and forgotten. Daniel did not waste a single day. He asked the council to wake one more human from cryo sleep. Nathan Cole was a former Marine who had joined the colony mission, hoping to leave his violent past behind. Now that past was exactly what humanity needed. Nathan was a short man with thick muscles and eyes that had seen too much. When Daniel explained the situation, Nathan did not hesitate. "So we're going to teach a bunch of aliens how to fight?" Nathan said. "Sounds like fun." They started with a simple demonstration. The council gathered a group of their best warriors, soldiers from different species who had survived encounters with the Vethrak. They were big and strong, covered in natural armor with claws and teeth that could tear through metal. Nathan stood in front of them, looking tiny by comparison. The aliens laughed among themselves. This small, soft creature was going to teach them about combat? Nathan attacked without warning. He moved faster than any of them expected, using techniques developed over thousands of years of human warfare. In less than 2 minutes, 3 of the best warriors in the galaxy were lying on the ground, unable to get up. The laughter stopped. "Size means nothing," Nathan told them as he helped one of the fallen soldiers to his feet. "Speed and surprise and willpower, those are what win fights. The Vethrak are bigger than you. So what? Every enemy has a weakness. We're going to find those weaknesses and use them." Word spread quickly through the station. The strange new species could fight. More importantly, they could teach others to fight too. While Nathan trained soldiers, the other humans worked on different problems. Dr. Lisa Grant spent her days in alien laboratories, studying everything she could find about Vethrak biology. She learned that they were sensitive to certain sounds that other species could not hear. She discovered that their eyes did not work well in blue light. She found out that a common chemical used in alien cleaning products made them sick. Every weakness was written down and shared. For the first time, the galaxy had a list of ways to hurt the Vethrak. Kevin Porter worked with alien engineers to design new weapons. The aliens had energy beams and force fields, advanced technology that should have been unbeatable. But they had never considered the simple power of kinetic force. Kevin showed them how to build railguns that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds. No shield could stop a solid piece of iron moving fast enough. He designed explosive devices that could be attached to enemy ships, triggered by timers or remote signals. He created weapons that disrupted electronic systems, leaving Vethrak ships blind and helpless. The aliens were amazed. They had technology far beyond human science, but they had never thought to use it in such brutal ways. Their wars had been polite affairs, fought with rules and traditions. Humans had no such limitations. Amy Lawson cracked the Vethrak communication codes. It took her 2 weeks of constant work, but she finally understood how their messages were encrypted. Now the Alliance could listen to every order the enemy gave. "They're predictable," Amy reported to the council. "They follow the same patterns over and over. They never expect anyone to fight back, so they don't bother hiding their plans." Daniel took all of this information and built a strategy. He studied human military history, from ancient battles fought with swords and shields to modern wars fought with missiles and drones. He adapted tactics that had worked on Earth for thousands of years and applied them to warfare in space. Ambush the enemy when they don't expect it. Hit them hard and fast, then disappear before they can respond. Target their supply lines and cut off their resources. Use fear as a weapon. Make them afraid to sleep at night. The Vethrak had never faced an enemy that thought like this. 3 weeks after Daniel's speech to the Council, the Alliance launched its first counterattack. A small task force of 15 ships, led by a human tactical team, found a Vethrak supply convoy moving through a remote system. The battle was over in minutes. The humans had taught their allies to strike without warning, to aim for weak points, to retreat before the enemy could organize a response. 7 Vethrak ships were destroyed. The rest fled in confusion. It was a small victory, but it mattered more than anyone could measure. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vethrak had been beaten. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. Species that had given up hope began to believe again. Volunteers flooded into the Conclave station, wanting to join the fight. Soldiers who had spent their lives running away now wanted to stand and resist. The Council called Daniel to a meeting. The tall gray alien who had doubted him before now looked at him with new respect. "You have done what we thought impossible," the alien said. "The Vethrak are not invincible after all." "They never were," Daniel replied. "You just forgot how to hurt them." "What do you need to continue this fight?" Daniel thought carefully before answering. "More ships, more soldiers, more weapons, and time to train them properly." He paused. "The Vethrak will respond to what we did. They'll come in force. We need to be ready." The Council agreed to everything he asked for. Resources that had been hoarded for escape were now given freely for the war effort. Scientists who had been working on ways to hide were now designing ways to kill. The entire galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the way. That night, Daniel stood alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vethrak were planning their revenge. He knew they would come with everything they had. He also knew that when they arrived, humans would be waiting for them. Amy found him there an hour later. "You should sleep," she said. "Tomorrow is going to be busy." Daniel shook his head. "I was just thinking about Earth, about everyone back home who has no idea what's happening out here." "We'll protect them," Amy said quietly. "That's why we're doing this." "I know." Daniel turned away from the viewport. "Let's go. We have a war to win." The Vethrak response came faster than anyone expected. 3 months after the first human victory, Amy intercepted a transmission that made her hands shake. She brought it straight to Daniel, her face pale with fear. "They're sending a battle fleet," she said. "Over 10,000 ships. They're coming here to the Conclave station." Daniel studied the data on the screen. 10,000 warships, millions of enemy soldiers, more firepower than the Alliance had ever faced in one place. The Vethrak were not just trying to win a battle, they were trying to end the war forever. "How long do we have?" he asked. 6 weeks, maybe less. The Council met in emergency session. The leaders of 100 species argued and shouted and blamed each other for the disaster. Many of them wanted to evacuate the station, to run like they had always run before. Daniel stood and waited for silence. When it came, he spoke clearly and calmly. "We can't run anymore," he said. "If we abandon this station, we lose everything we've built. The Alliance falls apart. Everyone goes back to hiding and hoping the Vethrak don't find them." He looked around the room at alien faces filled with fear. "We have to fight here. We have to show the Vethrak that some things are worth dying for." "You're asking us to commit suicide," one council member said. 10,000 ships cannot be defeated." "Not with that attitude," Nathan Cole replied. He had been standing in the corner, watching the argument with quiet disgust. "You outnumber them. You have better technology. The only thing they have is the belief that you won't fight back." Captain Samantha Blake stepped forward. She had been woken from cryo sleep 2 months ago to help train alien pilots. Before joining the colony mission, she had been one of the best fighter pilots on Earth. "I've flown against impossible odds before," Sam said. "I've trained your pilots and they're ready." We can win this fight if we commit to it completely. The council debated for hours. In the end, they voted to stay and defend the station. It was a close vote, decided by only a few voices, but it was enough. Preparations began immediately. Every ship in the Alliance fleet was called to defend the conclave. Every soldier was given a weapon and a position. The station itself was turned into a fortress, with defensive platforms and weapons hidden throughout its structure. Kevin Porter designed the battle plan. He placed minefields in the approaches that the Vethrak would use. He hid attack ships in asteroid fields where they could strike from ambush. He created kill zones where enemy ships would be caught in crossfire from multiple directions. The Vethrak are predictable, Kevin explained to the Allied commanders. They attack in straight lines. They don't expect tricks. We're going to give them more tricks than they can handle. Daniel made one more decision that changed everything. He ordered the remaining humans to be woken from cryo sleep. 12,000 people emerged from their frozen chambers, confused and frightened. They had expected to wake up on a peaceful colony world, starting new lives far from Earth. Instead, they found themselves in the middle of a war for the survival of the galaxy. Daniel spoke to them in the main cargo bay of the Endurance. 12,000 faces looked up at him, waiting to understand what was happening. I know this isn't what you signed up for, Daniel said. You left Earth to build a new home, not to fight a war. But the galaxy needs us right now. There's an enemy coming that has conquered 1,000 worlds. If they win here, they'll keep going until they reach Earth. Everything we left behind, everyone we loved, will be destroyed. He paused, looking out at the crowd. There were farmers and teachers and engineers. There were families with children, elderly couples who had wanted to spend their final years under alien stars. There were dreamers and adventurers and people who had simply wanted a fresh start. I can't order any of you to fight, Daniel continued, but I'm asking you to help. We need people to man the weapons, to repair damaged systems, to care for the wounded. Every pair of hands matters. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a woman in the front row raised her hand. She was middle-aged, with gray streaks in her dark hair. Her name was Grace Bennett, and she had been a high school teacher on Earth. What do you need me to do? She asked. Others followed. One by one, hands went up throughout the cargo bay. Not a single person refused. These were ordinary humans, people who had never expected to be heroes, but they understood what was at stake. The next 6 weeks were the busiest of Daniel's life. He trained civilians to operate defensive systems. He coordinated with alien commanders who had spent their whole lives running from battle. He planned and prepared and tried not to think about how many people were going to die. Sam Blake worked around the clock with her pilots. She taught them formations that had been used in Earth's air wars, adapted for three-dimensional space combat. She showed them how to read an enemy's movements, how to predict where they would be, how to strike and retreat without being caught. Nathan Cole drilled ground defense teams until they could fight in their sleep. If the Vethrak tried to board the station, they would find humans and aliens waiting for them, armed and ready. Lisa Grant set up field hospitals throughout the station, training volunteers to provide medical care. She knew that once the battle started, there would be more wounded than she could possibly treat. Every helper mattered. Amy monitored enemy communications constantly, tracking the approaching fleet. She reported every message, every order, every hint of the enemy's plans. The Alliance knew exactly when the Vethrak would arrive and exactly where they would attack. On the night before the battle, Daniel stood on the same observation deck where he had often gone to think. The stars were beautiful and cold, indifferent to the violence that was about to happen. Sam found him there. Having second thoughts? She asked. Always, Daniel admitted. But it doesn't matter. We're committed now. Do you think we can win? Daniel was quiet for a moment. I think we have to try. I think that's what makes us human. We don't give up just because the odds are bad. He turned to look at her. Tomorrow we find out what we're really made of. Sam nodded slowly. Then let's make sure we're ready. They walked back into the station together. In a few hours, the largest battle the galaxy had ever seen would begin, and humanity would be at the center of it. The Vethrak fleet appeared at dawn. 10,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, filling the space around the Conclave station like a swarm of angry insects. They were huge and dark, covered with weapons that had destroyed civilizations. The sight of them made even the bravest soldiers feel cold fear. But the Alliance did not run. For the first time in 1,000 years, they stood and prepared to fight. Daniel commanded the defense from the station's control center. Screens surrounded him, showing the positions of every ship on both sides. Amy sat beside him, translating enemy communications in real time. This was the moment everything had been building toward. "All units, hold your positions," Daniel ordered. His voice was carried to every Allied ship through the communication network. "Let them come to us. Wait for my signal." The Vethrak advanced in a massive formation, expecting the Alliance to scatter and flee as they always had before. Instead, they found thousands of ships waiting in defensive positions, weapons armed and ready. The first line of Vethrak ships entered the minefield. Kevin's hidden weapons activated all at once. Hundreds of explosions lit up the darkness of space, tearing through the enemy formation. Ships that had conquered worlds were ripped apart in seconds. The Vethrak fleet slowed in confusion. This had never happened before. "Now," Daniel said quietly. The Allied fleet attacked from 3 directions at once. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields emerged and struck the enemy from behind. Defensive platforms on the station opened fire, pouring energy beams and kinetic rounds into the Vethrak formation. Sam Blake led her fighter squadron into the chaos. They were outnumbered badly, but she had trained her pilots well. They moved in tight formations, covering each other, striking weak points in enemy ships, and then disappearing before the Vethrak could respond. "Stay together," Sam called to her team. "Don't get separated. Watch each other's backs." A Vethrak cruiser turned toward them, weapons charging. Sam saw it coming and pulled her squadron into a sharp dive. The enemy fire passed through empty space where they had been a moment before. "Circle around," she ordered. "Hit their engines." Her pilots followed perfectly. They had practiced this maneuver hundreds of times. In seconds, the Vethrak cruiser was drifting helplessly, its engines destroyed. Inside the station, Nathan Cole waited with his ground teams. He knew the Vethrak would try to board, to take the conclave from within. When the first enemy dropships attached to the station's hull, he was ready. The Vethrak soldiers were big and terrifying, covered in natural armor, armed with weapons designed to kill quickly. They crashed through the station's walls expecting easy prey. They found humans and aliens fighting side by side, using every trick Nathan had taught them. The corridors became death traps. The Vethrak pushed forward and found themselves surrounded. They tried to retreat and found their escape routes blocked. "Keep moving!" Nathan shouted to his teams. "Don't give them time to think!" A Vethrak soldier charged at him, swinging a massive blade. Nathan ducked under the attack and struck the creature's knee, exactly where Lisa had said they were weakest. The alien went down, and Nathan finished it with a quick strike. Lisa Grant worked in the main medical bay, treating wounded soldiers as fast as they arrived. The room was chaos, filled with blood and screaming, but she stayed calm. She had trained for this. Every life she saved was another fighter who could return to the battle. Grace Bennett, the former teacher, helped carry wounded to the medical bay. She was not a soldier, had never expected to see combat, but she refused to hide while others fought. Around her, ordinary humans did extraordinary things. The battle lasted for hours. Both sides took heavy losses. Allied ships exploded and went dark. Vethrak warships crumbled under focused fire. The space around the conclave became a graveyard of broken metal and frozen bodies. But slowly the tide began to turn. The Vethrak were used to enemies who gave up quickly. They were used to easy victories against opponents who had lost the will to fight. The alliance was different. Every time the Vethrak thought they had won, the defenders pushed back harder. Amy tracked the enemy communications and heard something she had never heard before. The Vethrak commanders were arguing with each other. Some wanted to retreat, others demanded more attacks. Their perfect confidence was cracking. "They're confused," Amy reported. "They don't understand why we won't surrender." Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Keep the pressure on." The turning point came in the 7th hour of battle. Sam Blake's squadron made a desperate attack on the Vethrak flagship, a massive ship at the center of the enemy formation. It was heavily defended, almost impossible to reach, but Sam saw an opening. "All fighters, follow me," she ordered. "We're going for the big one." They dove through a storm of enemy fire. Ships exploded around her. Friends she had trained with died in flashes of light. But Sam kept going, leading the survivors toward their target. She launched her weapons at point-blank range, aiming for the flagship's bridge. The explosions tore through the enemy ship's command center, killing the fleet's highest officers in an instant. Without leadership, the Vethrak formation fell apart. Ships that had been attacking now turned to flee. The enemy's perfect discipline dissolved into chaos. "All units, pursue," Daniel ordered. "Don't let them escape." The Alliance fleet chased the retreating Vethrak, destroying ships that had been unstoppable just hours before. By the time it was over, 3,000 enemy vessels had been destroyed. The rest fled into deep space, scattered and broken. The Battle of the Conclave was over. The Alliance had won. 3 days later, the Vethrak High Command sent a message requesting peace. They agreed to withdraw from all conquered territories, to release all prisoners, to pay reparations to the species they had wronged. The war that had lasted 1,000 years ended with a simple transmission. At the signing ceremony, the Vethrak Emperor met Daniel face to face. The alien was tall and powerful, covered in scars from ancient battles. But there was something new in his eyes when he looked at the human. Respect. "We conquered 1,000 worlds," the Emperor said. "We believed nothing could stop us. How did you defeat us?" Daniel thought about the question for a long moment. He thought about Sam and Nathan and Kevin and Lisa and Amy. He thought about Grace Bennett and the 12,000 ordinary people who had refused to run away. "We're not the strongest species in the galaxy," Daniel finally said. "We're not the smartest or the most advanced. But when we believe in something, when we decide that something matters, we don't give up. Ever. We adapt. We endure. We keep fighting until we win or until we're all dead." He paused. "And killing all of us is harder than you thought." The galaxy had feared the Vethrak for generations. Now they had learned to fear something else. They had learned what happened when humanity woke up. The Endurance never reached its original destination. Instead, the humans built their new home on a world given to them by the Grateful Alliance, a planet they called New Dawn. Daniel became the colony's leader, though he always said he was just keeping the seat warm for someone better. Sam flew supply missions between worlds, always looking for new horizons. Nathan trained a defense force, just in case. Lisa built hospitals. Kevin built cities. Amy connected them all together. The other species never fully understood humans. They were small and fragile and short-lived. But there was something inside them, something that could not be measured or explained, something that made them stand when others fled. The galaxy had changed forever on the day when humans stirred from cryo sleep. And somewhere among the stars, children of 100 different species grew up hearing stories about the people from Earth. The people who never gave up. The people who taught the galaxy how to fight. The people who reminded everyone what courage looked like. The end.